Every method is a small promise. Give me these inputs, I'll do some work, and hand you back a result. It's how you package behavior, so it's named, reusable, and testable. In this video, we'll cover it completely, the anatomy of a method, overloading, exactly how Java passes your arguments, the difference between static and instance methods, VARARGS, and the 4 access levels that decide who can call what. Let's build it up. Here's the anatomy. Left to right, an access modifier like public, optional modifiers like static or final, the return type, the method name, the parameter list, an optional throws clause for checked exceptions, and then the body. One crucial definition. A method signature is its name plus its parameter list only, not the return type. That matters a lot for the next topic, overloading, and it's a classic interview gotcha. You cannot overload by return type alone. Overloading means multiple methods with the same name, but different parameter lists, different types, different counts, or different order. The compiler picks which one to call based on the argument types you pass at compile time. That's why it's called compile time polymorphism or static binding. Since the signature ignores the return type, you can't have two methods that differ only in return type. The compiler couldn't tell them apart. Overloading is about offering the same operation for different inputs, like a sum for ints and a sum for doubles. How does Java pass your arguments? Always by value. It copies the value. For a primitive, it copies the number, so changing the parameter never affects the caller. For an object, it copies the reference, so you get a second arrow to the same object, meaning you can mutate that shared object and the caller sees it. But if you reassign the parameter to a new object, only your local arrow changes. Java is passed by value. Always, people just get confused because the value being copied is often a reference. A static method belongs to the class itself, not to any object, so you call it on the class, mathUtil.square, and it has no this and can't touch instance fields because there's no object involved. An instance method belongs to an object and can use this and the object's fields. Use static for stateless utilities and factory methods. Use instance methods when the behavior depends on that object state. And remember from an earlier video, static methods are hidden, not overridden. They're bound by the declared type. VARARGS let a method accept any number of arguments, written type followed by 3 dots, and inside the method they arrive as an array. It must be the last parameter, and you can have only one. It's how printf and list out of work. And methods can call themselves. That's recursion, powerful for tree and divide and conquer problems. Just make sure there's a base case or you'll get a stack overflow, because each call adds a frame to the stack. Finally, the 4 access levels from narrowest to widest. Private, then default, which has no keyword and means package private, then protected, then public. The one people miss is protected versus default. Both are visible in the same package. But protected also exposes the member to subclasses in other packages. Default does not. And the rule for overriding. You can widen access, say protected to public, but you can never narrow it because that would break the parent's contract. Keep fields private and expose behavior through the minimum access that works. That's encapsulation in practice. A few best practices and traps. Keep methods small and single purpose with a clear name. If the name needs an and, split it. Default to the least visibility and widen only when needed. Don't confuse overloading. Same name, different perms resolve at compile time. With overriding, redefining a parent method resolved at runtime. Avoid surprising callers by mutating the objects they passed in. And if you have a long parameter list, that's a smell, pass a single object, or use a builder instead. Here is overload resolution as a picture. You call sum of 2 and 3. The compiler looks only at the argument types and counts, matches them against the candidates, and binds the best one, sum of int, at compile time. That is static binding, no runtime decision at all. And here is passed by value as a picture. The caller has a number and an arrow to a list. Java copies both into the method. The copied number is independent. The copied arrow still points to the same heap object. So mutating the list is visible to the caller, but reassigning the parameter only moves the method's own copy of the arrow. One picture, whole debate settled. Here is the deepest thing about methods: how a call decides which body actually runs. Two ways. Static binding. The compiler picks the target from the declared type once at compile time. That is what happens for static, private, and final methods. Dynamic dispatch. For a normal overridable method, the JVM waits until runtime, looks at the actual object's class, finds that method slot in the class's table, and runs that one. Animal equals new dog, calling a .speak runs dog version, because the real object is a dog. That runtime table lookup is polymorphism mechanically. The compiler turns every call into one of 5 byte codes, and which one it picks is the whole answer. Invoke static for static methods. Invoke special for constructors, private methods, and supercalls. Those name an exact target. No lookup. Invoke virtual for normal instance methods. That one does the table lookup. Invoke interface for calls through an interface reference. And invoke dynamic for lambdas and string concatenation. Static, private, and final compile to invoke static or invoke special. An exact target with no table slot to override, and that is exactly why they can never be polymorphic. Every single method call gets its own scratch space pushed onto the thread stack, called a stack frame, and has 3 parts. First, a local variable array, slot 0, is this for instance methods, then your parameters, then your local variables, indexed by number. Second, the operand stack, a tiny workbench where the bytecode does arithmetic, push 2 operands, IAD pops them, and pushes the result. Third, frame data, a link to the constant pool and the return address, where to resume in the caller. When the method returns, the whole frame is popped, which is why locals vanish and why deep call chains cost stack memory. When several overloads could match, the compiler runs up to 3 phases and stops at the first one that gives a single best match. Phase 1, exact matches and widening. No boxing, no VARARGS. Phase 2 adds autoboxing. Phase 3 adds VARARGS. So for f of 1, with candidates fint, flong, finteger, and fint ... Phase 1 wins with fint because it is exact. Long would need widening. Integer would need boxing, which is phase 2, and VARARGS is phase 3. And watch the null trap. F of null with fstring versus finteger is an ambiguous compile error. Neither is more specific. Cast the null to pick one. VARARGS looks magical, but it is just an array. An int ... parameter is really an int array, and every call with loose arguments makes the compiler allocate a brand new array. Sum of 1, 2, 3 becomes sum of new int array 1, 2, 3. That is a heap allocation on every single call. So in a hot loop it adds up, which is why libraries add fixed arity overloads for the common counts. 2 more traps. If you have both a fixed version and a VARARGS version, the fixed one wins because it is an earlier phase and passing a bare null is ambiguous. Cast it. Recursion is a method calling itself, and each call pushes a new stack frame with its own copy of the parameters. The base case is what finally stops the pushing and lets the frames unwind. Without a base case, or if you just go too deep, the stack fills up and you get a stack overflow error. And here's the follow-up that trips people. Java does not do tail call optimization. So even a perfectly tail recursive method still pushes a frame per call and still overflows if the depth can be large, converted to a plain loop. When you override, for things have a direction. The return type may be narrowed to a subtype. That is a covariant return. The checked exceptions may only get fewer or narrower, never broader. Access may only widen, never shrink. And static methods are special. Redeclaring a static method in a subclass hides it. It does not override it. So which one runs is decided by the declared reference type, not the object. Parent P equals new child P. Who runs the parent version. That is why add override is illegal on a static method. Here is a protected trap almost no tutorial mentions. Everyone says protected means subclasses can access it, but that is incomplete. From a subclass in a different package, You may touch an inherited protected member only through a reference of your own type or a subtype, never through a plain superclass reference. So inside links, which extends big cat from another package, links.hasFur compiles, and a bear has fur on this compiles, but big cat.hasFur through a big cat type variable is a compile error. That is straight out of the language spec, section 6.6.2. Here's a detail that pays off. In your source, a method signature is name plus parameters. But inside the class file, the JVM identifies it by name plus a descriptor, and the descriptor encodes the parameter types and the return type as a compact string. Int is I. A class like string is capital L Java /lang /string semicolon. An int array is bracket I. Void is V. So int add of int becomes open paren I close paren I. Notice the return type is in there. That's why the source rule says you can't overload by return type. The source signature ignores it. But the JVM actually can tell two same name, same per methods apart by return type, and the compiler uses exactly that trick for bridge methods, coming up. Let's nail the contrast everyone confuses. Overloading and overriding both let one name mean several things, but the difference is when the choice is made. Overloading, like show of int versus show of string, is decided by the compiler at compile time from the declared argument types. Overriding, like a subclass redefining make, is decided by the JVM at runtime from the actual object using its table. Picture one line, printer p equals new fancy printer, then p.show5, then p.make. The show call locks on a show event at compile time and never changes. The make call waits until runtime and lands on fancy printer's version because that's the real object. Compiler versus JVM, compile time versus runtime. That is the whole distinction. Here's the deep one that separates you from the pack, bridge methods. Generics are erased, so a box of TS method becomes set of object at runtime. But in string box, you wrote set of string. Different descriptors, so by the normal rules that wouldn't override anything. To fix it, the compiler quietly adds a synthetic method to string box, set of object, marked bridge, whose body just casts to string and calls your real set of string. Now watch the dispatch. A caller with a box reference calls set. The compiler emitted invoke virtual set of object. At runtime, the object is a string box, so the table slot points at the bridge, and the bridge casts and forwards to your method. Covariant return types work the same way. That's how generic overrides stay polymorphic after erasure. And it only works because the JVM keys methods by descriptor, return type included. Interview questions on this, rapid fire. What's in a signature? Name plus parameter list, not return type. Pass by value or reference. Always by value. For objects, the value is the reference. Protected versus default. Protected adds other package subclasses. Default is package only. Can an override narrow visibility? No, widen only. VARARGS rules. One per method, last position, arrives as an array. And what most tutorials never tell you. Overload resolution has phases, exact match to widening to boxing to VARARGS. YF, 1, prefers fint over f, integer, over fint. Static methods are hidden, not overridden, bound by declared type, no polymorphism. Let's slow down and really build this up from scratch, one piece at a time. The visibility ladder, narrowest to widest. Overrides may move only rightward, widen, never narrow. Here's how it flows on screen. Private same class only. Next, default plus same package. Next, protected plus subclasses, other PKGS. Next, public everywhere. Next, widening then. Trace the arrows on screen slowly. That single picture is the whole idea in one glance. Now, the part candidates ask for most, what real companies actually probe on this topic, based on public interview reports, not official statements. All product and service companies reported overloading versus overriding, compile time versus runtime dispatch, access modifiers, public protected default private, and their real scope and pass by value versus pass by reference. Follow up. Is Java pass-by-value or pass-by-reference? Amazon Google reported static versus instance methods and why you can't override a static method. Hiding, not overriding. Here is how the same answer is graded, from weak to excellent, so you know exactly what an interviewer is listening for. Question: is Java pass-by-value or pass-by-reference? Weak, pass-by-reference for objects. Good, pass-by-value always. For objects, the value is the reference. Excellent. Java is strictly pass-by-value. Primitives copy the value, and object arguments copy the reference, the pointer, not the object. So a method can mutate the object the reference points to, visible to the caller. But reassigning the parameter to a new object does not affect the caller's variable. That's the tell of true understanding. Mutation propagates, reassignment doesn't. Impress. Tied to overloading, resolved at compile time by signature, versus overriding, resolved at runtime by the actual object's type via dynamic dispatch. Red flag. Pass by reference with no nuance, or thinking reassigning a parameter changes the caller's variable. Your cheat sheet. Method equals access plus modifiers plus return plus name plus perms plus body. Signature equals name plus perms. Overloading equals same name / diff perms, compile time, static binding. Pass by value always, copy of the arrow for objects. Static equals class level, know this, VARARGS last. Recursion needs a base case. And the memory trick, copy of the arrow settles every pass by value debate. Quick check, can you overload a method by return type alone? No. The signature is the name plus the parameter list. The return type is not part of it. So two methods differing only by return type will not compile. Quick favor. If this is useful, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. We post new videos and daily updates, every 1-0 to deep. Now to recap. Let's lock it in. A method is access, modifiers, return type, name, parameters, and body. And its signature is the name plus parameters, not the return type. Overloading is same name, different parameters, resolved at compile time. Java passes arguments by value, copying the reference for objects. Static methods live on the class with know this, and VARARGS must be the last parameter. And access runs private, default, protected, public, wide and only when you override. That's methods and access completely. That's methods and access modifiers completely. If it delivered, like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on new videos and daily updates, every 1-0 to deep. Next up, constructors, where objects are born. This is Codivora, engineering explained. Keep building.